G'day folks, it's Mark here from the Australian DeFi Association and Not Centralized. We're back for another podcast. This is both for the Australian DeFi Association website where you'll see it, as well as the Emerging Tech Taskforce, which is something new that we're creating that is helping you get more involved in the great world of emerging tech. Today, we put our blockchain hats on and we meet an amazing individual that's driving the space forward in Australia. It's Amy-Rose Goodey of Digital Economy Council of Australia. Amy-Rose, how are you?
I'm amazing. Thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the beautiful introduction.
Fantastic. And it was one take, and we can definitely attest to that. We'll record it on chain next time so people can believe it or not. But look, I just wanted to get an introduction for you because some people, maybe they're new to the space, and there's many, many new people we need to baptize into this space. But for folks that don't know you, could you give a quick introduction as to who you are and what are you doing with DECA?
Yeah, sure. My name's Amy-Rose Goodey. I'm the CEO of the Digital Economy Council of Australia. I've been with the association for just on approaching 6 years, and in the industry itself for a lot longer.
Fantastic. Yeah, you've definitely been a stalwart in the space here. And we were just discussing how there's so many people like us that help drive the community, whether it's events, whether it's policy, reforms, initiatives, just connections even. I'm sure you've had so many people just come to you wanting to get your help to connect to someone else. Is that right?
Yes. I think a lot of us are very happy middlemen in this regard, when the industry itself is probably not the biggest fan of middlemen, but it is absolutely my pleasure to be able to connect everyone. Actually, if you come to me and ask for a connection, irrespective of where you stand or whether you're a member or not, it is my pleasure. It's the way that we grow the industry.
Absolutely. And, you know, you're right there. It is kind of ironic that on the one side we're sort of anti-middlemen in terms of the inefficiencies that come from that. Yeah. And look, we are building systems that help there even to automate the stuff that we do. But there's still a massive need for people, and this is all about getting to know the people. Now, as for people that maybe don't know, Digital Economy Council of Australia, DECA, is definitely the peak industry body. You guys are the front foot when it comes to policy reforms and change. We've got an election coming up, and crypto's an election issue. So the questions I've got here kind of dive into all of that, because you guys went through a name change last year. And I wanted to frame this around the topic of, can Australia lead the world in trusted digital infrastructure? Now, diving into it, I want to understand what kind of drove the change in scope and branding, and how does DECA now define its mission?
Yeah, look, Blockchain Australia, we're in our 10th year and the association has evolved. This is the third evolution. Originally, we had the Australian Digital Currency Association back in 2014, and then shortly after in 2019, we had the merging with Blockchain Australia and the Australian Digital Currency Association. And that event happened because the leadership at the time and the industry at that time recognized that both blockchain technology and digital assets are obviously key infrastructure to this whole emerging digital economy. But at that time, that was a recognition of that need to bring industry and the membership bases together. Last year was when the rebrand, or the decision to take that leap from Blockchain Australia into the Digital Economy Council of Australia took place, and that obviously took a few months to take place. Look, what I do want to recognise is that Blockchain Australia itself was serving the industry very, very well. And what we wanted to do was recognise and celebrate the strides that the industry had made, and also recognise the convergence that we were seeing across multiple technologies, and that's AI, identity, digital identity, payments, digital assets, Web3, cloud, decentralized systems, DAOs, and a myriad of other technologies that are intersecting at the moment. And that's also, like, I could probably talk about a lot of different real world use cases, but what we did see was a convergence that was in its early stage taking place. And to maintain the relevance and the impact, we needed to bring the membership together and recognize that it's a lot bigger than blockchain and digital assets, and the digital economy itself is dependent on the success of all of these technologies maturing in the most efficient and best way possible together. If you catch my drift.
I definitely do, and I think that, you know, the name change was definitely important. I think it signaled to the industry and those outside the industry just how serious we are when it comes to blockchain not being just a vacuum. And I think it was a great name to ride with for the first, nearly decade before the change. And I think it was just timely that we've had. And we say this to many people, actually, it's a benefit that blockchain, or it's a blessing in disguise, that blockchain came first before the wave of adoption that's coming with generative AI, because we get to use this tech to help secure it. So I think it's great. Now, the question that I've got then is still the same kind of area about trusted digital infrastructure, but around the topic of Australia and global leadership. Do you think that Australia can become this global leader in trust-led innovation? And what's the opportunity that you guys see at DECA?
Australia historically has led in tech, particularly during the internet, the rollout of the internet itself. We are a forward-thinking nation. When it comes to the specific question of whether or not we can lead at this moment in time, I think we need to get back to our origins and that hunger for innovation that we had a couple of decades ago. I think we have a situation now, particularly with the digital asset and blockchain industry. If we want to lead, we need to have the structures around us to assist in that success. We don't have that clarity with respect to regulation in particular. We don't have access to banking rails like other industries do. And that goes for insurance as well. If we want to innovate, we need to have all the structures in place to be able to succeed as a business. In Australia, it's really hard at the moment to have a successful business. And I think I saw some data a couple of days ago where, we've had more small businesses go into liquidation than ever before in the history of Australia. It's just really, really hard with the cost of living and the crisis that we're sort of trying to move through at the moment as a nation. It's an onion. It's multi-layered. I think we have to address all of the problems that Australia has around growth, the talent shortage, the exodus that we're seeing of talent over to more favourable jurisdictions. So yes, I think we can. I think it's in our blood, it's in our culture to get in there and roll up our sleeves and get things done. But we do need to put the frameworks in place and the infrastructure with respect to the regulation in place first.
I think those are all very great points. And, you mentioned the infrastructure, and what we are building, whether it's blockchain and our friends that are starting to come more into this space, because it's all about digital, like you said, IDs and even AI and stuff there. We are the ones that are building with these new tools. We've gone into the new world. It's like there's this very interesting concept about this, is like the Renaissance 2.0. We had the initial Renaissance with the printing press and with the ledger being used by folks like the Medici family, and we're able to ascertain how, the wealth of people without always having to go to the centralized thing at the time, which was the kings and the courts. And now we've taken that electronic, and we've got this innovation that is really changing the world, and we can really build with this new technology, the way that we go forward in the future. And maybe because given today is the Liberation Day, they're calling it, or Trump Tariff Day, that was just announced, because we're recording this on the 3rd of April. Maybe we need this tech even more. Like, this is a wake-up call for Australians and those that lead the businesses that potentially are not embracing this, or potentially stopping a lot of the tech going forward. Maybe this is a wake-up call, as you're talking about there. What do you think?
Look, I think we need a wake-up call. I hope this is the time for a wake-up call, because we've just got this small amount of time where the whole world is digitizing. We are in a global economy. I hope you're right. This might be the moment. I think it comes from global pressure. It's a multi-jurisdictional global pressure system that is required at the moment. But I do think you're right, particularly from the US, and they're calling for transparency, and they've got the Doge, and Trump is doing a few very bold, and I probably won't go into some of the individual things that he's doing or saying. It's a bit contentious here at the moment, particularly where I am. It's in the family home, so we try and avoid the Trump conversation. But I do think we should look at the Digital Transformation Agency. There's a data and digital government strategy and a number of different technologies that they have included. And they have a little description, a definition, and a guide for implementation of use. And if you go to blockchain, it's not promoted, it's not trusted. And it does feel, compared to all the other technologies, that it's got a black mark against its name. And I think we should really address that, because we have a number of different projects that are building here in Australia that really at the moment don't get the recognition that they deserve. So, for example, we've got Verida and Digital ID Space Protocol, which I think everyone should have a look at, and that's on-chain validation of satellite data. And so we're moving into different industries, and it takes a government approach to recognise that the implementation of this technology is absolutely essential, at least to investigate as a first point of call. But what I'm gathering from some of the government websites is that it's not at that stage yet, and the implementation or the rollout or the integration into government tech infrastructure is not taking place, or not even being looked at. So I think we need to do some work there.
I massively agree with you. And I think it's really interesting, there is a lot of this innovation. Like, some people may have heard about Immutable and heard about some of the other great companies that are doing stuff in the space, crypto tax calculator, etc. And even something that came out of the government, as in the CSIRO was investigating with University of Sydney, something called Red Belly Network. And just last week, by independent auditors, they were proven to be the fastest blockchain in the world in terms of transactions per second. So we are innovating. Whether or not the government is there, it'd be great to have some support. And we'll see where that takes us. Now, we get into part 2, which is actually on the building component, and the hype versus value, and rebuilding confidence in emerging tech is this area that we're looking at. Now, in a market that is very saturated with noise, what do you think that real value looks like?
I can say it's not a token price. It's the impact and the implementation of real world applications and products and services. We're looking at DECA, we're looking at the economic impact of blockchain and digital assets and what that looks like for Australia. And so we're doing a research piece on that. That's the data that we need to draw on, solving actual problems and providing solutions and evidence of those solutions. I think that's the value, or what would be valuable at the moment. We've got to break through the hype. We've got to break through the narratives. We're moving past the scams narrative now, which is fantastic, which has consumed the industry for a couple of years. And I just want to just want to acknowledge that scams is a really key piece of it's a really important priority for Australia. We are, I think the #1 country targeted for scams at the moment. So we do need to pay close attention to that. But obviously there's a life cycle to scams, and digital assets are a component of that, and other industries and other segments participate in that cycle. It just is really fantastic to move past that and now start looking at the economic impact. And the real value is absolutely looking at those businesses who are building at the moment and solving real world problems. And that's what I think should be the focus, particularly in the next 18 months.
I massively agree that it should be much more of the focus area, because a lot of the stuff that people have had as fears have been quelled, whether it's, there is still calls for like the environmental type concerns, even though despite the fact that a lot of blockchains run very environmentally friendly, and sure, these claims were there at the start, but it evolves. Well, the other claims being that, oh, well, blockchain's no good because Bitcoin was supposed to be a hedge against blah, 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 like traditional kind of assets. Well, things change. Gold and any other technology that could have been or was supposed to be a hedge because it trades uncorrelated to markets, times change and new people come in, and these things evolve. But you're absolutely right about the solutions and whatnot. I think it's really interesting, just on a topic of the scams type stuff, that whether it's Chainalysis putting out research reports showing that as a percentage of the total activity in this space, that scams are actually going down as a percentage. So even though there might be a total, globally more scams, it's, going down as a percentage because there's far less scams out there than, people actually realize. Now, we'll see their new reports. But he also, who is it, Mr. Andrew Charlton, that he is the national envoy for cybersecurity. He's also a friend of blockchain. So, I think that there is some interesting kind of narrative that comes from that. But how do you think that builders and regulators can, say, collaborate to push Australia towards more of this, what you're talking about, this impact-led innovation, and it's not just buzzwords? How do you think we can collaborate?
I think we'll see it in the next 12 to 18 months with the expansion of the ASIC sandbox, I think they're reviewing that and having a look at a refreshing of that. I don't really know the right words to say, because I'm not quite sure as to what it will look like, and I'm not going to make any promises. But I think regulators need to be adaptive because you really can't predict the different projects and the different innovations that are going to come through. So you need to have an open mind and create a nice safe space within that sandbox for people to feel welcome and to be able to build in that safety net, I guess. And that's, I call that sort of a safe path or a safe road to innovation. There needs to be, similar to Japan, I'm not sure if you're familiar, Mark, with the approach that Japan takes, but it's a very refreshing approach. They're not casual per se, but they do have more of an open door policy. They've got a fintech hotline. They run the big digital asset events themselves, and thousands of people come through there. They walk around in hoodies, branded hoodies, and it's that open door policy is, I guess it's a mechanism for connection, and those who are building, who have, and very, very similar in Australia, those who have absolutely, they're building something, but they have no idea what licenses they're supposed to have. And these startups, they don't have, sorry, excuse there's dog barkers. They don't, a lot of startups, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you don't have the funds or the advice really, or the team to go out and understand all of the business processes and key people that you require in your business. So having regulators, or even a pathway to information from regulators that's more accessible, I think is really important. We're seeing that in other jurisdictions. So I'm guessing because Australia is a follower, we'll see Australia take that approach, probably not in the next 12 to 18 months, because I think ASIC is going through a number of its own changes, and there's a few other priorities there. But definitely having a friendly face to go to will mean more people do the right thing, more people go to the regulators, more people apply for the right licenses, and there's less stealth mode building and harm done to consumers.
I love that response, because there is definitely a need for that. And I love that example of Japan, and you've been there for a few times, some of these conferences that we see a lot of our friends go to. I have FOMO because my colleague got to go to it. I did not at the time, but that's okay. Someone has to man the ship while we're away. But
he had an amazing time, by the way. You did miss out. I'm sorry, Mark.
I saw some photos before he blacked out. No, I'm just joking. He definitely told me about the amazing time that he had. I think one of the last days was it Disney that you guys got to go on?
Yeah. A day off, went to Disney. It was amazing. Sorry about that FOMO too, Mark. Yeah, next time we'll go together.
Massive FOMO, guys. But I think what is interesting is the pathway that you talk about to making this the responses and answers and the clarity that's needed for many businesses, big and small, more accessible. And both of us, we're on this digital advisory panel with ASIC. There's other things that, in other parts of the government, that whether it's Treasury coming to the industry to get roundtables sorted out, or it's other groups, whether RegTech, Standards Australia, et cetera, FinTech Australia, there are all of these groups, regulators and other associations that we all come together. And I think we can definitely lead the voice there. So community, watch out, but we'll be doing more to try to help. I just wanted to know, like, we're talking about how the regulators and community come together to collaborate. But in terms of collaborating and showcasing, do you think that we need to wait for government and regulators to do this? Or do you see that there's like an opportunity for the industry itself to also come together?
Yeah, so there's more of an appetite, I think, to come together at the moment, because the momentum is building across both sides of government, and obviously even among our independents moving into the election at this particular time. There's appetite and enthusiasm around engaging with all stakeholders, and that's obviously the yourselves and us, other industry associations, different departments within the government, federal, state, ASIC and AUSTRAC and Treasury, the ACCC, even the Australian Federal Police. We all of those departments, DECA are engaged with, and in turn, obviously, that's industry engagement, and it is becoming more open. And I think there's less apprehension across all parties, and even originally over a decade ago, back in the libertarian sort of adoption stage, where engagement with government was sort of not it was a bit frowned upon. We're moving into a much more mature industry at the moment, and so that coming together and working together and being less siloed and more collaborative is definitely taking place. And we're seeing the benefits of that as well, because we're seeing momentum and that draft legislation is coming through. The industry is more of a force to be reckoned with than previously. And obviously globally the narrative is shifting with the US is taking a leadership role in that regard as well. So I don't think we can stop the train now. It's definitely moving in the right direction. All the same train. That's all the industry associations, all the intersecting technologies, all the government departments, all the communities, yourself and myself. Everyone on the same train in the same direction. We've got to talk to each other. So that's how I see it rolling out.
Fantastic. I definitely love that we're seeing much more of this engagement, whether it's across different businesses, individuals, the regulators, and us. You know, this does not happen by one group alone, but by, you know, all of us coming together. And speaking of connecting the dots, I guess that gets to the final kind of area I wanted to get into, which is basically how DECA supports a more, let's call it a united emerging tech ecosystem. Who do you see as, like, let's call them stakeholders, critical stakeholders in Australia's digital economy? What's your opinion on that?
I think it's all technologies in the global digital economy tech stack, and all the industry participants and all the stakeholders within those, particularly the leaders and the industry associations and the community groups who are involved in those different verticals. So the AIs, the quantum, particularly quantum cryptography, there's a pretty cool movement happening there at the moment as well. IoT and telecommunications, you know, with what World Mobile is doing at the moment, and even Vodafone is doing amazing things. And the automotive industry with Mercedes-Benz. There's all sorts of different stakeholders who are intersecting, leveraging from distributed ledger technology. And so I think all of those, and it's like the train metaphor that I was talking about, the train analogy that I was talking about, where the stakeholders are not obvious. They're not as they're not as obvious as just blockchain and digital assets anymore. We have to think outside the box, have a look at those other industries, talk to the businesses who are building products with a multitude of different technologies, showcase them, show the world that it takes multiple different players to build and to innovate. And I think that's broadly what, in my view, what the stakeholders look like globally at the moment.
That is amazing. I think that you're absolutely right there, where it's not just the blockchain industry. And as we've said, and as you and I and many others are seeing more and more, that it is something that it needs to connect to all of these other ecosystems. And you laid out some great examples there, these ones that people might not realize that, oh, actually they are an important part in the space, and how it's not just how do we bring people to blockchain, but how do we bring blockchain to the world, to the people, to the industries that need this kind of stuff. We're seeing more of those examples, so it's great. Now, just rounding out, and this is the last question, but you guys are a very important bridge between industry, government, community, and research. How do you guys kind of see the future playing out, because you are this important bridge? What's your sort of vision?
So we will continue to facilitate those really important conversations, particularly around policy and innovation, and bringing talent and investment back into the country. One of the things I think we do well is we listen, we synthesize, we advocate continuously, and we take action. Everything that we do is impact driven, so we want to make sure that that we serve our members, but then even more broadly that we serve the industry altogether. And so I have zero doubt that we'll continue doing that, and probably with a little bit more force as we move through to the election and then past the election, and then as you know, the government finds their feet in the next 12 months or so. So I think this is a watch this space, just because we're seeing a lot more momentum. Even I can't really predict. We've got, and we'll make a number of membership and partnership announcements in the coming months, but you'll see quite a diversity of members coming in who are recognising that this industry and DECA and Australia itself is a really good spot to bring their businesses. So I can't really say exactly how it will look, but I can say that I'm incredibly optimistic about the next couple of years, more so than I've ever been before, actually.
Fantastic to hear. That was a really great roundup, and we're really excited as well. I think we share your optimism. It's why we continue to do this and continue to talk to people like yourself in industry. A very important node, if we borrow, some blockchain language there, of the evolving space. And if people want to learn more, how do you recommend they get in touch with you?
If they want to reach out to me, just come to me on LinkedIn, but deca.org.au is definitely the place to go. Lots of different spots you can click there.
Fantastic. Well, Amy-Rose, thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat with you again soon.
Thanks, Mark.
Tech is wild and the future's untamed. Blockchain blazing, carving new lanes. AI whispers in a silicon scheme. Dreams coded deep in a mainframe dream. Algorithms dance on this digital dirt. Crypto's buzzing while the old rules hurt. From Sydney skies to the outback globe. Emerging